wrong.
Hello and welcome to another marvelous video. I'm your host Will. Video game fans have been eating pretty good lately. From Mario to Sonic to Pokemon, video game stories have been adapted pretty well to the big screen. Which is why in this video, we're gonna take a look at HBO's The Last of Us Season 3 status. Let's get to it.
Adaptations of video games in Hollywood are running hot right now as a genre. Be it Amazon Prime's Fallout, or the Uncharted and Mortal Kombat movies, or even the upcoming FX-produced Far Cry series. But when a classic production house like HBO takes over a venture in this area, you can expect nothing less than a masterpiece. And that is exactly what they delivered with the adaptation of the legendary game The Last of Us. We are 2 seasons in as of April 2026, and we cannot wait for more. In case you haven't been keeping up with The Last of Us since its record-breaking debut on HBO, you should know that this is a class apart. Season 1 was seen as a faithful adaptation of the beloved 2013 video game while also expanding its world in certain creative ways. It ended up earning critical acclaim, a massive audience, and a whole lot of awards. And when Season 2 premiered in April 2025, the makers continued that momentum. But here, they did something unexpected. The series stopped well before the end of the source material. So basically, Season 2 adapted only a portion of The Last of Us Part 2, a game that fans consider a darker sequel, and that was released in 2020. But this decision by the creative team behind the show, led by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, believed that the story of Part 2 was too large and also too emotionally complex to just be contained within a single season of television. Now this is exactly why, even before Season 2 aired, there were discussions about a 3rd season that were already well underway. Mazin and Druckmann had been telling reporters for years that the second game would require multiple seasons to adapt properly. In interviews that we came across from back in 2023 and 2024, they quite often emphasized that the narrative of Part 2 is a shift in perspective that carries a level of emotional weight, which also demands room to breathe. They described Season 2 as only the beginning of that adaptation, and they made it clear that the story would continue well beyond it. By the time HBO officially renewed The Last of Us for a 3rd season on April 9th, 2025, it simply felt like a confirmation in the form of a formality, more than anything else. This renewal also came ahead of the Season 2 premiere, so it also indicates how solid the vote of confidence was from the network side towards the creators. The executive vice president of HBO programming, Francesca Orsi, praised the creative team for delivering such a quality follow-up in Season 2, and also showcased her excitement about carrying their storytelling into what she called an equally moving and extraordinary 3rd season. But what makes the 3rd season so fascinating is that it continues the story under a slightly different creative structure. In July 2025, Neil Druckmann, the co-creator of the series with Mazin and the director of the original games, announced that he would be stepping back from his day-to-day creative involvement with the show, mainly because he wanted to move his attention towards Naughty Dog's other future game projects, which also included Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. However, he will remain credited as the co-creator and executive producer on Season 3, but Craig Mazin will surely serve as the sole showrunner. This shift is quite essential, but again, it did happen with a great deal of transparency and maturity. Now, Druckmann himself has said that the show would go on without him, and that he was looking forward to seeing Ellie and Abby's stories continue. Meanwhile, Mazin has been open about the responsibility that he has now of carrying the narrative forward, while staying true to the core of those 2 games that made the show resonate so deeply with audiences. Now, on to the direction that the story is headed, in which I can safely confirm that, for many fans, this is perhaps the most anticipated aspect of the entire production. By the end of Season 2, viewers had seen a brutal confrontation between Ellie and Abby in Seattle, which was a moment that mirrored the game's own midpoint twist. The season finale ended with a fade to black, followed by a title card that read, Seattle, Day 1, which implied that the narrative would now likely jump back in time to show the events from Abby's perspective. This structural choice is also exactly inspired by the game's design in a way. In The Last of Us Part 2, after a traumatic and shocking event, the story resets to show the player 3 days in Seattle through Abby's eyes, as her motivations are gradually revealed to us, along with her relationships and her own brand of trauma. Season 3 is expected to do the same. Caitlin Dever, who plays Abby, confirmed in early 2026 that she was headed to Vancouver to begin preparation for the next season, and she told Deadline that fans would appreciate the shift in perspective, saying, "It's different from the game in that we're given a little more context to Abby in the show version." Craig Mazin was also asked about the next season, mainly about the episode count as well as the pacing, to which he simply replied with, "I will say that Season 3 will be longer than Season 2. Season 3 will be more on par with Season 1. More bang for the buck." So this information does allow fans to assume that they'll seem to make more room to explore narrative detours that could be similar to the beloved Bill and Frank episode from Season 1. Mazin has also indicated that the story will likely require a 4th season to reach its proper conclusion. This statement was also supported by HBO chairman and CEO Casey Bloys, who made it clear in mid-2025 that the series was planned for a 2027 release, and that the creative decision between going ahead with 2 more seasons or just 1 long season would all be left to Mazin. Now, the casting for Season 3 is also building some hype on its own. Obviously, the leading names include Bella Ramsey as Ellie, Isabella Merced as Dinah, Gabriel Luna as Tommy, and Jeffrey Wright as Isaac, who is the leader of the Washington Liberation Front, if you remember. Wright's casting was considered quite important because he had a history with the character. That's because he quite literally was the voice of Isaac in the video game, which brings a welcoming touch to his casting, especially for fans. Keep in mind, Kaitlyn Dever's role as Abby will expand even more this time around, as we know it, since Season 3 is set to place her perspective at the very forefront. Several other actors have been promoted to the status of series regular, including Ariella Barrer as Mel, Tati Gabrielle as Nora, and Spencer Lord as Owen, which likely means that their characters are going to have more substantial roles in the upcoming season. There have also been some really interesting additions to the cast as well, with the likes of George Lindenborg Jr. taking over the role of Manny, after it was reported that Danny Ramirez was going to exit the show due to scheduling conflicts. There is also Clea Duvall, who has joined the cast as a Seraphite, the religious cult that we were introduced to in Season 2. And don't forget the likes of Jason Ryder and Patrick Wilson, as they have been added in recurring roles, with Wilson set to play Jerry, Abby's father. But perhaps the most talked about new additions are Michelle Mao and Kyriana Crater, who will play Yara and Lev, the 2 Seraphite siblings who become deeply involved with Abby's journey. Mao, known for her role in Bridgerton Season 4, and Crater, who appeared in Star Wars Skeleton Crew, have joined the 3rd season as series regulars. Their casting has obviously generated quite the buzz among fans. However, this has also sparked a bit of controversy, and it is particularly around the character of Lev, a transgender boy whose identity is a central aspect of his character. In the game, Lev was voiced by trans actor Ian Alexander, and some fans have expressed concern that the role was given to a cisgender actor. HBO has since gone out and stated that an inclusive casting call was held for Lev and that the character will still be portrayed as trans in the show. Let's move to the production timeline for Season 3, and this has been a subject of much speculation. Filming was reportedly scheduled to begin in the summer of 2025 in Vancouver, British Columbia, under the title Megasword. However, that timeline appears to have been pushed. In May 2025, Isabella Merced mentioned that she expected filming to begin in 2026, and by late January 2026, Kaitlyn Dever confirmed that she was preparing to head to Canada within the week to begin preparation for the season. We can assume that the production for Season 3 is currently underway, even though HBO has not issued an official confirmation on this. But given the scale of the show and how complex the process of production for the show really is, a 2027 release window seems realistic. Casey Bloys himself indicated that the series is planned for 2027, as they continue with the typical 2-year gap between seasons. Season 2 began filming in February 2024 and premiered in April 2025, so a similar timeline would place Season 3 in early to mid 2027, if we're not too off with our calculations. In terms of looking at the franchise as a whole, many reports suggest that HBO is treating The Last of Us as a long-term prestige franchise, much like Game of Thrones. The network has invested heavily in maintaining the high production requirements while still managing to balance the expectations of the video game fans with the needs of a television audience. One of the biggest challenges facing the creative team is how to expand the story without introducing filler. Well, on this, Mazin has spoken about the importance of taking time to explore interesting pathways, which expanded on a relatively minor section of the game to create one of the most acclaimed episodes of television that year. This same approach very much suggests that Season 3 may also include original content that ebbs out of the world a bit and still manages to strengthen the overall lore of the story, all while remaining grounded to the emotional beats as seen in the game. All that said, we can't ignore some obvious uncertainties that come with adapting adapting such a divisive story. The Last of Us Part 2 was famous for polarizing fans of the original game, with its narrative choices, its dual protagonist structure, and the way it explored key themes like grief and revenge, which sparked serious debates. How the television series handles those elements will inevitably go on to shape audience reception. Mazin and Druckmann have always emphasized that their goal is to stay faithful to the emotions and the truth of the story, even if the path to that truth changes in its adaptation. Mazin even once famously said, "You don't really change the process. The process is the rock that holds it all together." Now, the shift to Abby's perspective, which, as mentioned earlier, was to dominate Season 3, is one of the most critical tests of that approach. If handled with the same quality of nuance that defined the first 2 seasons, it could help bolster the narrative in ways that even the game's most vocal critics might appreciate. But again, on the flip side, if that is mishandled, it risks a kind of alienation of a part of its audience. Nevertheless, after considering Mazin's track record, along with the performances of a cast that has already proven its ability to carry heavy emotional material, it suggests that the creative team is well aware of the high stakes involved. On to what we officially have regarding Season 3, and as of now, there is no trailer for Season 3, no official first look, and no confirmed release date beyond the 2027 window. We know that the show has not completed its filming, and much of what we know comes mainly from casting announcements, comments from the creators and actors, and some clues embedded in the game itself. What is clear is that Season 3 is not the end of the road, and that the story will very much stretch into a 4th season, at least as per Mazin, who has repeatedly stated that the story will require more time. And while we have to wait for a while to witness the next season, we can totally assume, based on recent history, that it'll be absolutely worth doing so. And that is our video for today. We hope you had a great time, as we understand the status of where we stand regarding the much anticipated season of HBO's The Last of Us, and everything that we know so far about it. If you enjoyed watching this video, please drop a like on it, share it with your friends, and let us know your thoughts on The Last of Us series as of yet, and how you're feeling about the upcoming 3rd season, down in the comments section right below, please. And finally, please subscribe to our channel for more such content. Until next time, take care and ciao!